Have you ever felt strangely disconnected in a room full of people screaming at a television screen? Everyone around you emotionally invested, yelling at referees, celebrating strangers, feeling devastated over a game. And meanwhile, you feel absolutely nothing. No excitement, no emotional attachment, no urge to care. For a long time, society quietly makes people feel like that is abnormal. Like if you do not care about sports, something is missing inside you. But psychologically, that assumption may be completely wrong. Because not everyone's brain is stimulated by the same things. Not everyone builds identity the same way. And not everyone feels emotionally fulfilled through competition, tribal loyalty, or group excitement. Some minds are pulled somewhere else entirely, toward ideas, toward creativity, toward deep thinking, toward inner worlds most people never slow down long enough to notice. I remember sitting in conversations where everyone passionately debated sports teams, and honestly, I felt more fascinated observing the psychology of the people talking than the game itself. And maybe that says something deeper about human nature. Sometimes the people who seem disconnected from the crowd are not empty at all. Their attention is simply focused on different forms of meaning, different forms of stimulation, different forms of identity. So if you have ever felt out of place because you genuinely could not force yourself to care about sports the way everyone else seemed to, this video may explain more about your mind than you realize. And if content like this helps you understand yourself on a deeper level, make sure to like the video and subscribe to support the channel for more psychology and human behavior content. And maybe the first thing you need to understand is this: human brains are not emotionally rewarded by the same experiences. What feels thrilling to one person can feel completely empty to another. Psychology refers to this as reward sensitivity. Some people's brains react strongly to competition, unpredictability, and emotional intensity. That is why sports can feel almost addictive to them. The suspense, the tribal energy, the emotional highs and lows, their brain lights up from it. But for other people, that same stimulation barely creates any emotional response at all. I remember sitting in a crowded room during a championship game once. Everyone around me was screaming, standing, emotionally overwhelmed by every small moment. And honestly, I kept wondering why I felt more interested in analyzing the people than watching the game itself. That was the moment I realized something important. Disconnection does not always mean something is wrong with you. Sometimes your brain is simply searching for a different type of stimulation, a different type of meaning. Some minds are activated by competition. Others are activated by ideas, patterns, creativity, or deep reflection. And if you've experienced that feeling your entire life, comment number 7 below. Because sign number 1 may simply be this: your brain was never wired to chase the same emotional rewards as the crowd around you. And once you understand that different brains seek different forms of reward, the next layer becomes even deeper. A lot of sports culture is not really about the game itself. It is about identity, about belonging, about feeling emotionally connected to a tribe larger than yourself. Social psychology has studied this for years through something called social identity theory. Human beings naturally form groups to create meaning, connection, and emotional security. That is why people proudly wear team colors, defend strangers they have never met, and feel personally affected by wins and losses. The team slowly becomes part of their identity. But not everyone builds identity that way. Some people feel more connected to ideas than groups, more connected to individuality than collective loyalty. I remember being around people who could instantly bond for hours over sports teams, and while I understood the social energy, I never felt emotionally pulled into it myself. Instead, I found deeper connection through conversations about psychology, ambition, creativity, or life itself. And honestly, that difference can make people feel isolated sometimes, especially in a world where sports are one of the most accepted forms of social bonding. But sign number 2 may simply be this: you were never searching for belonging through crowds. Your mind was searching for connection through meaning. And maybe what makes all of this even more fascinating is how many of our strongest interests are quietly shaped long before we fully understand ourselves. Childhood exposure plays a massive role in what the brain eventually learns to value emotionally. If someone grows up in a home where sports are constantly celebrated, where weekends revolve around games, team loyalty, and emotional excitement, the brain slowly builds powerful associations around those experiences. Sports become connected to family, belonging, nostalgia, identity. But when someone grows up without that environment, something very different happens. The emotional connection never fully forms. I remember talking to someone who said they always felt confused watching people become deeply emotional over sports. because nobody in their household ever cared about it growing up. Their family talked about books, business, music, ideas, so their mind naturally attached emotional meaning to different things instead. And honestly, that explains a lot about human behavior. People often assume everyone experiences the world through the same emotional lens, but they do not. Our environment quietly teaches the brain what matters and what does not. And if you've ever felt disconnected from sports your entire life without fully understanding why, comment number 7 below, because sign number 3 may simply be this. Your mind was conditioned to find meaning in completely different worlds, and once you begin realizing how deeply environment shapes interest, the next layer becomes impossible to ignore. Different minds are naturally attracted to different forms of stimulation. Some people crave fast-moving emotional engagement. Others crave depth, patterns, complexity, abstract thinking. Psychology often refers to this as cognitive preference. And honestly, this explains why certain people feel more mentally alive discussing philosophy, technology, business, or human behavior than watching a game unfold for 3 hours. I remember sitting with a group once while a major sports event played in the background, and while everyone else was emotionally locked into the score, my attention kept drifting toward completely different thoughts. I found myself analyzing conversations, body language, motivations, patterns in human behavior. The game itself barely held my focus. And for years, I thought something was wrong with me because of that. But eventually I realized the issue was never intelligence or superiority. Different brains simply seek different forms of mental engagement. Some people are stimulated by competition on a field. Others are stimulated by ideas that force the mind inward, questions without simple answers, conversations that reshape perspective. And sign number 4 may simply be this. Your mind naturally searches for stimulation that feels psychologically or intellectually deep with surface-level excitement. And maybe that deeper mental focus also explains something else most people never think about. Sports are intensely emotional experiences. The excitement, the anxiety, the sudden highs, the crushing disappointments. For many people, that emotional roller coaster feels exciting and alive. Their nervous system enjoys the unpredictability. But for others, it feels emotionally exhausting almost immediately. Some individuals naturally prefer emotional stability over emotional intensity. I remember trying to force myself to care during big games because everyone around me seemed so emotionally invested. But after a while, I realized I was not feeling excitement. I was feeling drained. The loud reactions, the tension, the emotional swings over outcomes that had no real impact on my life. My mind kept pulling away from it. And honestly, that realization changed how I viewed myself. Sometimes people assume you are cold or disconnected simply because you do not emotionally react the same way they do. But emotional regulation works differently for different personalities. Some people seek stimulation externally. Others protect their peace internally. And sign number 5 may simply be this. Your nervous system does not crave constant emotional highs and lows to feel engaged with life. You may simply find deeper fulfillment in things that create calm focus, inner meaning, or long-term mental satisfaction instead. And maybe after hearing all of this, you are finally starting to realize something important about yourself. Not caring about sports does not mean you are emotionless. It does not mean you are boring, disconnected, or incapable of passion. In many cases, it simply means your mind is emotionally alive in different places. Some people feel excitement in stadiums. Others feel it in ideas. In music late at night, in deep conversations, in building something meaningful, in understanding life on a deeper level than surface entertainment ever could. I remember reaching a point where I stopped forcing myself to pretend interest just to fit into conversations around me. And honestly, there was something strangely peaceful about accepting that my mind simply worked differently. Because the older you get, the more you realize human beings are not supposed to be emotionally identical. We connect to the world through different doors. Different obsessions, different forms of meaning, and maybe that is the real message behind all of this. Sports are not the universal language of passion, they are only one version of it. So if this video made you feel understood in a way you rarely experience, make sure to subscribe to the channel and support the next psychology and human behavior videos. There are still so many hidden patterns about the human mind most people never stop long enough to truly understand. All the voices and images in my videos are created with AI. But the editing process is completely done by me. I personally match every image with the voiceover, arrange every scene, and turn everything into a complete video. No AI or machine can replace that part. Making videos takes a lot of time and effort, so if you enjoy the content, please support the channel with a like and subscribe.